to FCS Delivered and the start of our second season spanning FCS college football. I'm Craig Haley, along with co-host Gary Reasons, the two-time Super Bowl champion, three-time FCS All-American at Northwestern State. Gary, welcome to another season. How are you doing? And tell us what you've been up to since we last saw you in Frisco, Texas in January.
Well, Craig, we topped off a tremendous 2023 season with the Stats Perform FCS National Awards, and I tell you, I took a deserved break because I had been all over the country covering the FCS, as you know, going with our on-campus visits. And after that big event, I kind of shut down a little bit. My wife and I actually took a month-long trip to Europe, which kind of got the batteries recharged, and but it was fun to go do all that. And now it's time to get back to a new season of football, and I'm raring to go.
Terrific. That's a great trip. And I know one other thing you've been up to this summer. You made the New York Giants all-time top 100 team. Congratulations. What was that like?
Well, it came out of left field, Craig, because completely I did not know that they were selecting a top 100 team of all time. So this is the 100th season of the New York Football Giants. And I played most of my career, there 8 of my 9 years in the National Football League, my first 8 years with the Giants, and winning a couple of Super Bowl championships and being a part of several great teams there in New York over the years, some great head coaches. We had a tremendous run, and I was a part of that. And it was really to get this honor to be recognized as one of the top 100 players of all time of the over 5,000 men who have worn a New York Giants uniform. That's pretty special, and I'm very appreciative of the honor.
That's outstanding. Now, Gary, FCS Delivered, this is our second season, as we mentioned. I mean, Seth Biley and Graham Bell are our producers. You can find us in so many places, including theanalyst.com, but you can listen to us on podcast platforms from Amazon to Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and others. And, of course, you can search for us for FCS Delivered on our YouTube channel. And this year, we will be on Urban Edge Network's HBCU Plus, another great way to show our weekly episodes. And, of course, they will be weekly all the way up to Frisco, Texas. We're certainly looking forward to that. What a season we had last year. Now, as we get started in our first episode, we want to set up the season opener, obviously, August 24th, which is fast approaching. That's week 0 when there's a small amount of games. But we also want to take a look back as well to last year, the 2023 season. But Gary, I mean, what stood out to you last year? Obviously, there was one big team in the room that went on to beat South Dakota State, but tell us your impressions from last year.
You know, we all kind of looked at South Dakota State at the start of the season. They had a head coaching change, so Jimmy Rogers took over for Coach Stiegel there at South Dakota State, and we're wondering, are they going to get it done? We knew they had the talent. They had the people in the room that could possibly get this done, and they performed. They did it throughout the entire season. They had an unblemished record, and congratulations to them because they did a great job. And really, when we capped it all off at the end of the season with Mark Gronowski, their quarterback, coming to the FCS National Awards show and being named the Walter Payton Award winner, and then going out and winning the national championship game the next day, that topped it off. And I think everybody in the FCS community thought that the Jackrabbits could get it done, and they certainly did. And congratulations to them for a tremendous season last year. But are they going to be the ones this year? We'll see.
Well, I remember last August, you correctly predicted Jimmy Rogers would win the Eddie Robinson Award for National Coach of the Year. And, you know, he did it in his first year, 15-0, tremendous. They beat Montana 23-3 in the national championship game. Just a dominating year, especially with that defense. But it was great to see Montana being back. Bobby Houck, what a great job he did. And, of course, they were in the best game of the year, I think you could say, when they beat North Dakota State. 31-29 in double overtime in the national semifinals. Clearly just a heart stopper. And those three teams, and you throw in a Montana State, I mean, those are become the powers of FCS college football. How about some of the other things that stood out a year ago, Gary?
Well, really, you're talking about a couple of conferences, Craig. MVFCC, the Missouri Valley Football Conference, really elite football, and also the Big Sky. And I think, Craig, we're seeing perennially those two conferences rise to the tops. The CAA last year also really played some tremendous football. There's no doubt about that. When you take the University of Albany going all the way to the semifinals, and with all the travel that they had to go through, and Coach Gattuso doing a good job bringing that team around, I thought that was pretty special to watch, and really how that team emerged. They may have a chance they'll be in there again this year, so we'll see how that turns out. I enjoyed last season, Craig. I thought it ended up pretty much like we expected, but there were some ups and downs along the way.
No doubt. And I tell you, you mentioned CAA. I mean, in recent years, the Missouri Valley Conference and the Big Sky have taken over as 1-2. CAA used to be right up there, 1-2 all the time. There's a little bit of a gap from the two big conferences and then the CAA, but you mentioned Albany. I mean, that to get them back to a national semifinal, the conference, and that was the first time for the Great Danes. This year, 16 schools are in the CAA. It's the largest FCS conference in history. Now, it's only going to last 1 year at 16 because Delaware will be moving up to the FBS in another year. But CAA is very deep. Villanova is probably the favorite going into this year. But, certainly those three conferences tend to send the teams to Frisco for the national championship game. And it'll be back in Frisco for the 15th year this year. Just a great host city. It'll be a Monday night football game this year on January 7th, 2 days after our FCS National Awards. Last year, I mean, we were talking awards with Mark Banowski and Jimmy Rogers. There were a couple others that were in Frisco. Tell us about some of those winners.
Well, we had Terrell Allen there for the Buck Buchanan Award. We had Eli Gilman there for the Jerry Rice Award, and Tommy Ballott, from Montana State for the FedEx Doris Robinson Award. So there were a lot of players that we're going to see again this year that are going to have an opportunity to make a difference on their football team. So what we had at the National Awards ceremony last year was pretty indicative, I think, Craig, of how the season unfolded. And really, I think we got, with our voting panel across the country, we got the right winners for those types of awards. And that's really what we're about right now. So, there's 129 FCS schools, Craig, at play right now. And, this is going to unfold here over the course of the season, because when you look at the FCS, they've done it right for the last, I don't know how many years, but it's been a 2014 a championship bracket that we go through in the FCS. And so we have that in place. Consider what the FBS is now going through. They're going to this year be the first year of a 12-team selection in their bracket. So we've done this for years and years and years, getting the right champion there because of the bracket play. And the FBS now is undertaking that same initiative. So I think things in college football overall, the Division I football level, are really, really percolating. And this is a great time to be involved.
Yeah, it's the 47th year of FCS football. You mentioned 129 programs this year. It's only been topped one other time. The pride and joy is that national playoffs, 24 teams. They've always done it right. FBS trying to catch up to what we've always known was the right thing to do. There was also, the MEAC and SWAC send their champions to the Celebration Bowl, even though they can still have teams in the playoffs. Last year, North Carolina Central made the playoffs out of the MEAC. Florida A&M reigned last year in HBCU football, won the SWAC championship, beating Prairie View, and then beat Howard in the Celebration Bowl, 30-26. Willie Simmons was their coach at that time. Just a great way to end the year for those programs in the MEAC and SWAC. Florida A&M, you had to have been impressed a year ago.
Yeah, it was a great year. And this year, 2024, we have, guess what, 30 new FCS head coaches. So a lot of programs, about 1/4 of the programs in the FCS are going to be starting anew with a new head coach at the helm, and kind of seeing where things are going to take off or not with that change in leadership. So those are the things we'll be looking for as this season starts out.
Well, after we take a break, Gary, we're going to start to talk about the season ahead. Just what are your impressions on what is similar and what is different going into a preseason camp from year to year? Because the teams are starting to report.
Yeah, well, what happens is, the coaching staff has to find out how can we meld a team together, and they're going to be bringing on new players, whether they're going to be transfers or whether they're going to be first-year players as freshmen, and that's what you're trying to look for. How does this team come together? So the spring season, obviously, you're not going to have freshman players, but they could possibly be there early in the summer. And a lot of teams have a summer camp system to where they pull all the incoming freshmen together, and hopefully a lot of the players that are going to be there from the previous year will be able to stay across the summer, so those guys can get together, work out together, somewhat practice together on their own a little bit, and then you move into the fall camp, and that's where you're going to see what your team is really made of. This will really be the first time when fall camp gets underway that these teams really have been together in total of what's going to happen for 2024, and that's when you're going to find out who you have, what you can kind of look at as pieces of the puzzle for your football team. And then you're going to make some strides early in the season here as we got it coming up here that, early season games really are going to be indicative of really what your team possibly could be for the season and really for conference championships and even into the playoffs.
And it's not like it's too hot at the start of training camp, Gary.
There's plenty of heat all the way around here in Texas where I'm at. It's consistently, triple digits here every single day, it seems like. And anyway, but we'll get through all that, and we'll have a lot of fun along the way.
We will, no doubt. Well, Gary, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back to our second segment at FCS Delivered, we're going to talk about a big week we've had here with announcements going in towards the 2024 season. This is FCS Delivered. Welcome back to FCS Delivered. I'm Craig Haley, along with Gary Reasons. This is our second segment of our first episode of the season, our first podcast episode. Gary, what a week it was this week at Stats Reform and theanalyst.com. We had major announcements from our All-America Team preseason to our 3 watch lists, the Walter Payton for FCS Player, the Offensive Player of the Year, the Buck Buchanan, the Defensive Player of the Year Award, and the HBCU Plus FCS Player of the Year watch list, a new award. What a week, Gary. You had to have been overwhelmed by what we had.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun to see these things come out, and you're looking at some of the names, and these are watch lists. Okay, give them the attention that they deserve. These players that they've worked hard, and they've been now recognized as potential winners of these awards. Now, anybody could win these awards if they have a superlative season, and they may not be on these watch lists. But these are the ones where we kind of look at the list of players, and you see who all is going to be coming back for their football team, and really kind of what they have done in the past and what it might translate into the future. And really, this is where we pick the most outstanding offensive player, the most outstanding defensive player, all the things that we do, the special teams player of the year. We got all different types of things that we do with freshman of the year. And now we've got an HBCU Plus player of the year, which is going to be outstanding with our partner UEN. And that's pretty cool to have our FCS awards grow. And so when you were able to bring in a partner like the Urban Edge Network, this is really showing that there's a lot of more powerful things that are going on in the FCS landscape. This is going to be something that we will follow all season long. Urban Edge is going to be with us on campus a little bit sometimes this year. They'll be at our FCS Award National Banquet, and they're going to have an FCS Player of the Week award that we'll talk about more.
It's a fabulous partnership, as you mentioned, and the HBCU Plus Player of the Year award. It's for all 21 FCS HBCU programs. SWAC, the MEAC, North Carolina A&T, Hampton, Tennessee State. All positions are eligible for this award: offense, defense, special teams. What we'll do is December 9th announce the winner, and that recipient will be invited to the FBS Awards Banquet in Frisco, January 5th. Just a great new award. New season, new award. We're certainly thrilled for that. Well, let's also talk about the preseason All-America team. Last year, the postseason team, 35 first-teamers. Only 5 are back, Gary, this year. One of them with Mark Gronowski, the South Dakota State quarterback. Who else is back this year?
Well, with Mark, obviously, he sets the table there at the quarterback position. He's certainly at the top of the game, and he finished it out last year as a Walter Payton Award winner, winning the national championship game, and he's back at the helm for South Dakota State. Maybe he's going to have another back-to-back season with that Walter Payton Award. We'll take a look at that and see. But there's other players that are out there. Returning also as Montana State offensive lineman Marcus Ware, and you've got Central Arkansas. This is a guy who came a couple of years back now, David Walker. We first learned about him as a young player. He's now back. He was on the 2022 first-team All-American group. Now he's back as a preseason All-American selection. Cole Wisniewski from Merrimack, kick returner Donovan Wadley. There's a lot of guys that are back that we're familiar with. But I'd like to see, Craig, the new names that are on that preseason All-American watch list, because those are possibly some of the ones that we're going to look at this season, say, yeah, we got this one right. Or there may be somebody from completely outside of this list that really sets the FCS on fire. And those are the stories that are special.
Like a Terrell Allen, Tennessee State, he won the Buck Buchanan. He just exploded last year. So you're right. You don't have to be on the watch list. All it takes is an opportunity to excel. For the preseason All-America team, the national powers really ruled, though. I mean, North Dakota State, 8 selections. Tim Polasek has taken over. He's returned to the schools as its head coach. He's going to have a power. South Dakota State and Montana, last year's finalists, there were 6 selections each. Montana State, Tommy Malott, we know him very well from the national awards. They had 5 selections. Those programs have really stood out. I mean, there's other great teams out there, South Dakota and Villanova and some of the others. But those top 4 that, the Dakotas and Montana's schools, they really stand out. So, yes, we were thrilled to announce this All-America team. But you're right, new guys can certainly emerge this season. And Gary, as we go to break for FCS Delivered, we have a video here of our first team selections from the Stats Reform FCS preseason All-America team. Welcome back to FCS Delivered. I'm Craig Haley along with Gary Reason. This is our third and final segment for the week. Gary, the FCS National Awards are so important to us and mean so much. This is a special year. It's the 30th season for the Buck Buchanan Award, the National Player of the Year in FCS college football. What a standout he was at Grambling State. I know last year we had a guest on who said that if the award was around when you played at Northwestern State, you would have been a Buck Buchanan Award finalist. What are your thoughts on this special award?
Well, you talk about defense. You talk about Buck and what he did. Buck Junius Buchanan, he was a great player. He's the first overall draft pick way back when into his professional career. And, he stands for something of excellence. And, when Eddie Robinson used to talk about Buck Buchanan, he called him hands down the best defensive lineman he's ever seen. So that's the kind of player that Buck Buchanan was, and rightfully so, an award named in his honor. And so we have a chance to then push that honor forward by selecting a top defensive player in the FCS for the entire season. And, it's a fun thing to do. And I'll tell you, Craig, of the awards that we select every single year, the defensive player is probably the most difficult one to do, because when you look at defensive players, people look at their defensive play differently. It's not something like you have a lot of stats like offensive players. and you can pick things out. There's a lot of things that are potentially different in defensive stats, and people look at those differently. I'll just tell you that is how it works. So there's going to be somebody who's going to rise to the top, and that always is the case. And we'll get another Buck Buchanan Award winner, and we'll celebrate that.
Well, to celebrate 30 years of Buck Buchanan, we did a watch list this week. 30 candidates. You mentioned David Walker. He's on it now for third year in a row. Central Arkansas. We had some other finalists back from last year. 10 overall. 3 of them were in the top 10 of the voting. McNeese State linebacker Micah Davey, Amir Abdul, the linebacker at Illinois State, Finn Claypool, defensive end at Drake. So it's a very talented list. You mentioned how wide open this race always seems to be. I agree. I've always said that. Now, the Walter Payton Award, on the other hand, we announced the watch list there, and there is a clear favorite, you would have to think. Tell us about the National Player of the Year Award.
Well, a player, Walter Payton, who I had the pleasure to compete against in the National Football League. Obviously, his career started at Jackson State, where he was an All-American running back, and a great career there. Went on to be the top NFL player at his time as a running back in the National Football League. Walter Payton is the top of the pack there. So when you have an honor named in his name, and we select players for that, the top offensive player at the FCS level here as the Walter Payton Award winner, it really means that you're essentially the top player in the FCS. So that's pretty cool. Mark Gronowski won that last year, and it was a pretty good selection because, they finished it off the correct way. They won the national championship. Mark quarterbacked them the entire season. And he's back, and he's going to potentially be a back-to-back selection. We'll see. Got to play the game, but it's an award that really, I think the family is really. Jared Payton is a great friend of the FCS National Awards, and he and his family really appreciate things that we have done over the course of our National Awards program to bring the Walter Payton Award forward, and it really is deserved on the player who receives this award because they have certainly achieved greatness and they have put that on the field for display, and it's great in the FCS.
Back to back, there's been 2 back-to-back winners. This is the 38th season for the Payton Award. Do you know who those 2 quarterbacks were?
Back to back? No, I don't.
Well, Jeremiah Briscoe at Sam Houston. He did it in 2016 and 17. And Monte Edwards at Appalachian State, 2008 and 9. He went on to be a wide receiver in the NFL. Mark Gronowski's trying to be the third 2-time winner of the Walter Payton Award. Buck Buchanan, we know Dexter Coakley, one of our presenters. He's the only 2-time winner of that award. So it's elite company for sure. Now, in addition to Mark Gronowski, there's some other top 10 finalists from last year. Fordham quarterback C.J. Montez, Cam Miller from North Dakota State. I think he was just outside the top 10. He's back on the ballot or the watch list. Lan Larison, he was the offensive player of the year in the Big Sky. He's the running back at UC Davis. So it's a talented group. I think there were 10 past finalists, last year's finalists on this watch list. Now, obviously, later in the year, we'll be talking about the Jerry Rice Award for National Freshman of the Year as players emerge there. We also have the FedEx Doris Robinson Scholar Athlete Award. We're doing more and more as we this year as we get towards that. Tommy Malott won last year from Montana State, and you presented it in a surprise ceremony at Montana State. Which reminds me, FCS National Awards on campus. I think you'll be out on the road again this year, correct?
Yes, sir. I will be hitting the road soon, and really looking forward to it because last year we kind of created this whole environment, this whole thing, Craig, and it took off very, very well. I appreciate all of the coaches out there at the FCS level of welcoming us in and giving me a chance to speak to their teams for a few minutes to present this award in front of their peers, in front of their teammates. And it's really a team award in total. Even though we're singling out one of the players, it's a team sport. But it was a lot of fun, and it's great for FCS. And we're just trying to shine a brighter spotlight on everything we do. And the FCS National Awards on campus will be in year 2 soon this season.
Yeah, the FCS Awards on campus, certainly a lot of fun, Gary, like you mentioned. And of course, this first episode of FCS Delivered for the 2024 season, been a lot of fun. We thank you for all your insight here, Gary. Next week, we will talk about the Stats Perform FCS Top 25 preseason poll, which will be out by then. And we're going to talk a little more about the HBCU Plus Player of the Year Award because it's something new. And just like the season ahead, we're looking forward to it. Gary, we thank you for this week, and we thank you, everybody, for tuning in to FCS Delivered.